degree also. Stéphanie Courouble did a PhD in Paris at Université Denis Diderot under the supervision of Pierre Vidal-Naquet, a very famous historian. And she did her dissertation on Holocaust denial in various countries after World War II. And she's writing a book about that topic, Comparative Analysis of Holocaust Denial in Various Countries and in various media also. She's an ISGAP fellow. She's also a fellow at the Institut d'Histoire du Temps Présent, which I had the pleasure of visiting also and working in a little bit. She also does research at Bar-Ilan University. She also lectures at Yad Vashem at the Université Populaire de Jérusalem. Mm-hmm. So a person very well connected, very well traveled, and very well researched, if I may say. Thank you very much for coming all the way to Montreal to give us this seminar.
Okay, thank you, Professor Fischer. I would like first to thank the university to receive me. It's an honor to be here. After that, I would like to thank ISGAP to invite me to Montreal and his director, Charles Smalls. And I would like to thank you to be here. And the last thing that I would like to say with you is if you have a problem with my English, I'm not bilingual like you. So please raise your hand, tell me that it's not enough, you don't understand, and I will come back on my sentence. Now, if you have questions about the subject, we will take time after the lecture to talk about it. So keep your question for after, okay? So the first questions that I would like to raise with you to see the issue of Holocaust denial is shall we talk about Holocaust denial? Shall we not just ignore them, not to talk about Holocaust denial? And it's the first questions that I would like to see with you is it not giving them the publicity, talking about them? So this is a question. To answer to this question, I have to tell you a small story. I was with Abraham Foxman, the National Director of Anti-Defamation League in New York 2 years ago, and I asked him the questions. How happened at the beginning when Holocaust deniers were talking about the subject in the 60s? How did you react as an Anti-Defamation League? He told me that the survivors came to him and they wanted to talk with him about it, and should we react to them or not? And at this time, in the 60s, they said no, we shouldn't react. We should just ignore them. But the fact is, as soon as deniers become receives more credibility in the public space, we couldn't anymore ignore them. And this is the point that I want to see with you, is this point here. I don't know if you know about Robert Faurisson. It's a French denier, very famous in France. As soon as he received a free article in Le Monde, that is the famous newspaper in France, as soon as he's received a free article where he denied the gas chamber, where he denied the Holocaust, we couldn't anymore ignore them. So this is a point that it's very important to understand now, and I want to go like this. 1 hour to talk about this subject is not enough, of course, and I am going to talk about different countries and at different times, so I have to do short, and I'm sorry if sometimes it's a little bit frustrating because I can't more develop, but it's a very complex subject, and 1 hour is not enough, of course. So I'm going to see with you the evolution of Holocaust denial in the time with a chronology to see different periods. Before to do this chronology, I can wait if you want that people are coming. Okay, so before to do this chronology, I want to give a small definition of Holocaust denial. I'm not familiar with the computer, so please, I will try to do the best. So what Holocaust deniers say. They say that historians, the Jew, mostly, the alias, and the Jew, Israel, lie about the Holocaust, and they create a rumor, the extermination of the Jewish people, in order to obtain financial help from the Germany, and further to create the state of Israel. It is what they say. Now, if you want, I can see another slide. Is the argument. So I'm going to explain a little bit their arguments. I can't develop because there are a lot, but I try to summarize some of them. The first argument that they have, they want to deny the proof of the genocide. So they are going to say the proof of genocide are fake, are second-hand. The proof of genocide are in contradiction. There are improbability. This is the first argument. After they go to historian. They say historian misinterpret the proof. So they focus on historian. And then after they focus on testimonies. They say that the SS, during the trials, they lie about it because they were under torture. So they couldn't explain exactly what happened, so they lied. After that, they say the witness. The witness the witness are with mistakes. So they mistaken they are doing a lot of mistake of what happened. So this is a way to deny the Holocaust. After they use different arguments like it's impossible demographically. After demographically arguments, they use like technically arguments, like it's not possible technically, like the gas chamber couldn't exist technically. So it's another argument. After, they will say people die from typhus, from disease, but not from the gas chamber. And they will say that the Jewish people are alive, and they are alive in the United States, in Israel, with fake name. And they didn't want to see anymore each other, like the family, because before they were forced to be married. So they don't want to see anymore. So this is the main argument that they use. And then after the last argument that I can see is the final solution was not the extermination of the Jewish people, but it was the expulsion of the Jewish people near in the East countries. So this is the main arguments that I can see about Holocaust denial. Of course, there is more than that, and I couldn't explain more, but we have to go on. So after, I wanted to see with you, it's more how we analyze their arguments. And it's a little bit more complex, but for me, I thought it was very interesting to see it. First of all, they have a logic of denunciation. And I can go on it, but I use the sociologue, I don't know if you know Luc Boltanski. He is a sociologue who works on denunciation, how the denunciation work. And it's very interesting to see that, so the denier are the denunciator, the victim are the German people, and the persecutor are the alias. And this denunciation, there has to be, it's very important when you have a denunciation that the denunciator is very far away of the victim. So they don't want to, the deniers, to have a logic denunciation, they need to say we are far away from the German people. We are not neo-Nazi. It's needed for their logic of denunciation. After that, we have another logic, is the logic of the prophecy. It means that they're using a logic of prophecy as the way that they are the new prophet. How they are the new prophet? Because they say, we have a good news to tell you. The good news is that the Jewish people never died. So for them, it's like they are the new prophet. And they use this like, it's a good news. You should be very happy of it. So, and they go on this logic. Another logic that they use is, as I told you, they use the logic of technical arguments. And this logic is very strong for them. And I will come back with it in my chronology. But it's very important to see that they send pseudo-experts in Auschwitz to prove that the gas chamber never existed. And they had a famous report on it. And I will come back on it because it has to be with the Zundel trial, maybe that the trial that you know the more here in Canada. So I will come back on it with this kind of report. But it's very interesting to see their arguments logic. And a last logic that it's interesting to see, it's the logic of lampeniste. I use in French the word pamphlétaire. And I think it's more pamphlétaire than lamponiste that I want to use. So I don't know if lamponiste is the best way. You have here in McGill a professor, it's Marc Angeno. I don't know if you know Marc Angeno, but it's a famous professor here who works on the logic of pamphlétaire. And it's very interesting to see that the deniers go very well in their logic of pamphlétaire. And all the pamphlétaires use the same arguments. They say, for example, that they want to see the truth. The truth for them is the best thing that they want to see. They research the truth. And it's all the pamphlétaires are using the same arguments, and deniers are the same as well. And Marc Mangeno talked about the paranoia of the conspiracy. And it's very interesting to see that the denier has the same logic. They see conspiracy everywhere, and they see the conspiracy of the Jewish people. And this idea of the conspiracy of the Jewish people it's not new. We have the Protocole des Sages de Sion. In English is the Protocol of the Elder of Sion. And now we have another theory of the conspiracy. They are blaming the Jew for the 9/11. And so this conspiracy of the international Jewish people is a link with the past, is a link with the future, and the deniers goes very well inside this conspiracy. Now what is interesting is like deniers refuse to see themselves inside this conspiracy. They say, we are not like this. We are researchers. We are historians. They want to have a strong credibility. So it's the way that they want to be accepted by the public space. So this is a little bit what I wanted to tell you about the definition. And I hope everything was clear. If you have questions, you will ask me after for this. Now, what I want to see with you is the first, I will come back after. It's the first time, the first period of Holocaust deniers is the beginning of Holocaust denier, and the time is 1946-1973. So it's in fact the political roots of Holocaust deniers, and I will explain to you that it's what I'm talking about political roots is because they are funding the Holocaust deniers, the Holocaust denier, and in the present time, and they show in fact the future ambiguity of Holocaust denial. So the first political roots, it's divided there is third root. So the first root is ex-Nazi, neo-Nazi, extreme right, and the second and the third roots has to be with libertarianism. So I will explain to you everything about it, but let's see now the first roots of the extreme right. So we have extreme right, ex-Nazi, neo-Nazi. We have in Germany Nation Europa, that it's a review. We have Deutsche Nationalzeitung, it's also a review with director G. Frey, that it's a neo-Nazi. We have Udo Wallendy, also a link with neo-Nazi. In United States, we have Austin Happ. We have Liberty Lobby, with the director is Willis R. Carto. We have the National Renaissance Party in 1949, with the director is James Mandel. And we have the American Nazi Party in 1959. So this is in France, we have Maurice Bardèche, and the magazine that Maurice Bardeche have is Défense de l'Occident in 1952, and also François Duprat, who start also deny the Holocaust. So this is the first roots of Holocaust denial, and these roots, it's quite simple to understand because they are neo-Nazi, they are extreme right, and what they want is they want to free of guilt the Nazi regime. They want to say that the Nazi regime is not responsible for the Holocaust. They want to deny it. So it's a mixed, at this time, this period of time, it's a mix between revisionist and Holocaust denial. So they don't, sometimes they don't deny, they just review. It's a mix between the two of it. And they want to say, it's simple, they want to say that the Jewish people are controlling the history. And it's quite, it's quite easy to understand this root of Holocaust denial. Now, if we see the second and the third roots of Holocaust denial, it's a little bit complicated. So I need your attention about it because it's more complicated, and I will try to explain everything. If I want to come back to the second and the third roots of Holocaust denial, I need to come back to libertarianism. And I'm not going to say that all the libertarians became deniers. It's not what I want to say. But some of them deviate. So the libertarianism, if I have to say, it's an individual ideology. It's anarchist capitalist. Okay? And we have in libertarianism another a left side of the libertarianism is the anarchist, egalitarian or socialist. This side of the anarchist, they are not capitalist. It means that they don't want the free economic market. Okay, this is a different side of the libertarianism. Now I'm going back to the second side. It means the anarchist capitalist. If we see the anarchist capitalist, we will say that they want the right of freedom for everybody. Okay, this is the main things of the anarchist capitalist. They will say that they want to eliminate the power of the states. Okay, this is the idea of the anarchist. Now, coming from this philosophy, this political philosophy, you have the American revisionist historian movement of the First War and the Second War. So the revisionist movement of the World War I and the World War II, the leader of it, it's Barnes. Okay, Barnes is the leader of the revisionist movement. What we can see with this movement is they are isolationist, pacifist, and they don't want that United States come to the war. They refuse that the intervention of the state in the war because they are linked with the anarchist capitalist. Okay? After that, they refuse the Manichaeism of the vision of history. They review the origin of the war. They don't want a vision like Manichaeism, like we have the bad side on the good side. So they want to review it. Okay? They want to review also the responsibility of the German people for the war. They want to say the German people are not so responsible for the war. It's not them who start the war. So all this revisionist movement is very interesting to analyze because we can see that some of them deviate to Holocaust denial. Some of them deviate to and become deniers. The first one is David Hogan. David Hogan is a very interesting denier because he is a doctor in history in Harvard, so not the last university. And also his first book, he published a book in 1971, his first book. It was not a denial book, but he wanted to see that Hitler is not responsible for the war. It was interesting for him to develop a big controversy in the United States about it. the method that he used was the method of deniers, but again, he was not denied at this time. And the second book that he had, I didn't write here, but it's in 1979. The second book is The Myth of the 6 Million. And this book was completely a denial book of the Jewish genocide. What is interesting to see with David Hogan is he has been published in Germany. First, his book, the first book, has been published in Germany by a neo-Nazi publisher. At the same time, he received for the first time the support of Barnes, the revisionist movement, the leader of the revisionist movement. At this time, when we see Barnes give the support to Hogan, we can see that he is deviate to Holocaust denial. Barnes started in 1972 to deny the Holocaust at this time. So when we see revisionist historians with a lot of credibility, even if they were polemists at this time in the United States, they are giving to Holocaust denial a big credibility. After that, we have another historian who become linked with Holocaust denial and is also a libertarian. It's James G. Martin in 1974, who also become after a Holocaust denial and is linked with the revisionist movement. So this is what we can say. Harry Barnes in 1974 denied the Holocaust and meets Paul Racinier. At this time, when one meets the second one, we have link between the two libertarianism. So now I would like to come back to the the third root of the libertarianism that is more complicated than that. So I need more attention. So if we want to explain this third root, it's I have to go back to Bordigism. The Bordigism is a philosopher, an Italian philosopher or politician. His name is Amodeo Bordiga. And he created Bordigism. It's a left, ultra-left. We call them in France libertaire. Okay? The movement of the Bordigism is linked with Paul Racinier. Paul Racinier is a survivor of Buchenwald and Dora. He is from ultra-left wing. He come back from the war and he start writing book on Holocaust. And he started to criticize the literature of the survivor. And he started like this. And then, little by little, he denied the Holocaust by denying the number of the victims. And he gave, by the fact that he is a survivor, he gave a lot of credibility to the movement. At the same time, some French intellectual from the ultra-left start reading Paul Racinier and start being very interested by him. They come from the Bordigism. They come from this idea. So how to explain the Bordigism and how to explain the first fascicule that they write. It's a little bit more complicated. So the name of the fascicule is Auschwitz and le Grand Alibi. Auschwitz and le Grand Alibi was written in 1970 by the group of French intellectuals. I'm going to explain a little bit what they are saying. So, to explain, we have to think, for us, we have a difference between democracy and fascism. Okay? For us, there is a difference between the two of it. The difference between democracy and fascism, it's Auschwitz. This is a difference for us between democracy and fascism. For them, for the Bordigist movement, for inside the fascicule that they wrote, Auschwitz et le Grand Alibi, they say that there is no difference between democracy and fascism. For them, democracy and fascism is the same thing. They don't see the difference between it. So because they don't see the difference between democracy and fascism, they don't want Auschwitz. They want to reduce it, because otherwise we see the difference. So they need to reduce Auschwitz because they need to not see the difference between democracy and fascism. Okay? This is the first idea. It's a schematization of it, it's a summarize, but it's a little bit what they are thinking. The second idea that they have is they want the revolution. They want to do the revolution. Workers have to do the revolution. And because there is Auschwitz, because there is the victim, the survivor, workers see worse than them. Because workers see worse than them, they can't do the revolution. Do you understand how they are thinking? So the way that they are thinking is they need to summarize, resume, they need to reduce the Holocaust, because otherwise workers can't do the revolution. It's summarized. Another idea in their mind is in their Marxist logic, it's not possible that Hitler didn't use the workers that they had for the war. It's not possible. They don't understand in their Marxist logic that they killed the people, because they needed for the war. They needed as the workers. So it was a big workers are here. Why they kill them? For them it's not possible. Because it's not possible, they come to denial. Another idea that there is in their logic is there is always political falsification. In every genocide there is political falsification. They want to see like this. So because there is always falsification, why not also the Holocaust? Why not the Shoah? So it's a little bit a summarize of their idea. But we have to see that the two roots of the libertarianism, the two roots of this denial was very important and give them a lot of credibility, because they try to see not only as neo-Nazi extreme right, but also like intellectual, professor, historian. So they are always playing with the two of it, with this side, on the other side the neo-Nazi, because it gives them respectability. But at the same time, they never hide the fact that they have contact with neo-Nazi, because that creates a big scandal. And deniers like to have big scandal. So one of the last that I want to talk is Pierre Guillaume. Pierre Guillaume is the director of La Vieille Taupe. La Vieille Taupe is a review, and it's also a library in France. And it's him who starts to publish all the deniers in France. And they become very famous in France. I have to say, as the same thing that I say for libertarian, not all ultra-left intellectuals from France or from another country became deniers, of course. And it's just some of them were very strong opposite to it and expressed themselves in the newspaper to say we are against it. But some of them deny and deviate to Holocaust denial. What we have to see, it's like I'm going to change soon but I'm staying with this idea. Between the two wars in Israel, like in 1977 and 1973, anti-Zionism became more stronger. The fact that the anti-Zionism became more stronger, Holocaust denial was also more stronger. The fact is, as soon as we can more criticize Israel, we can also more criticize the genocide, the Jewish genocide. So at this time, the anti-Zionism become more stronger, and Holocaust denial as well. We have to see that Paul Racinier died in 1977, and Harry Barnes died the year after, in 1978, the fact that two spiritual fathers of Holocaust denial died made the new Holocaust denial, a new Holocaust denier could come, if you understand what I want to say. Holocaust denial use Barnes and use Racinier as the two spiritual father of Holocaust denial. And for them, they are their support because one is an historian, a famous historian, and another one is a survivor. So they give them a strong credibility. In 1979, so the book of David Hogan came out, The Myth of 6 Million, and it's become the basis of Holocaust denial, of deniers' arguments. And it has been published by Willis Carto, and Willis Carto is a very famous anti-Semite in the United States, one of the famous anti-Semites. So after that, we come to a new period of Holocaust denial. It's a period of the organization of Holocaust denial. After the roots, we have really deniers who came and they bring the frame of arguments. So we have in the United States still Austin App, we have Arthur Boots. In Germany we have T. Christopherson, William Stieglitz, Erich Kern. We have in England Richard Harwood, in France Robert Forisson. So all these deniers were, before that, we had revisionist denial. Okay, it was like ambiguous. After that, at this time, the Holocaust denial was clearly deniers. Oh, okay, if you understand what I want to say. I would like to draw your attention with 3 deniers at this time, because it's interesting to see that at this time, deniers changed their communication. They wanted to see themselves like respectable people. They want to bring credibility to Holocaust denial. So I want to talk about, first of all, Richard Harwood. Richard Harwood said that he's professor of the University of London. So even if we knew that Richard Harwood is not professor of this university, and his real name is Richard Verrall, he is member of the extreme right in England. He involved a big controversy in England when he started denying the Holocaust. A famous writer is Colin Wilson. Colin Wilson is a very famous writer from the generation of Harwood in England. And he has no contact with neo-Nazi, get involved with Richard Harwood to give him his support. And it created a big controversy in England at this time and give him a respectability, of course. Also, another deniers is Arthur Boots. Boots doesn't need to claim to be a professor. He is really a professor. He is a professor of a university in Northwestern. He is a professor of in Northwestern in the United States. He is a professor of engineering. He claimed to not have direct contact with neo-Nazi. He also has a book, so the book is well written. He said that he has no contact with neo-Nazi. He said that the over-research of David Hogan are not good. He always liked Paul Racinier. And he wants to show him as, he wants to say that he's just interested by the truth. And he doesn't want to claim anything else. He has no contact with neo-Nazi again. So, and he wants to say that he only researched the proof. And he creates the idea that there is 2 schools. The exterminationist, who is the school of historian, who wants to say that there is extermination. And another school is a school of revisionists. And so by the way that he's doing it, and he named Holocaust denial revisionist, he linked with the past revisionist movement. Okay? The last one is Robert Faurisson. Robert Faurisson is also a professor in France, in the university in Lyon. He also said that he has no link with extreme right and neo-Nazi. And he also, the university was not showing him like an anti-Semitism. So, and he started publish, as I told you in introduction, he started to publish a free article in Le Monde denying the gas chamber and give a lot of credibility to the subject. He was defended and he received the support of the ultra-left, as I told you also. One of the supporters was Serge Thion. Serge Thion is a researcher at the CNRS. So he gave him, by his support, a lot of credibility to the movement. And also at this time, because Serge Thion is a friend of Noam Chomsky, they give an avis who became the preface of the book of Robert Faurisson. So for them, it was a success because Holocaust denier could say that we have in her book, in the book of Robert Faurisson, the preface of Noam Chomsky. So it's they give them a big, an enormous credibility. In 1977, Arthur Booth, the professor of Northwestern, organized a trip in Europe where he meets Robert Faurisson, he meets William Staglish in Germany, he meets neo-Nazi, he meets the English publisher of Richard Harwood with Anthony Hancock, and he also meets a German publisher, Udo Wallenby. Both are from extreme right. So Booth claimed that he was not linked with neo-Nazi, but he came to Germany and meet people who was linked with neo-Nazi. At this time, when we can see, with this meeting, we can see that there is a non-official international movement. In 1979, the non-official international movement became official. The Institute of Historical Review has been created, and Willis Carto is the financial support of this institute. They give the first conference at this time in Los Angeles, and they claim to be an institute of research. The people who came to this first lecture was Dr. Booth, Dr. Robert Faurisson, Dr. App, and Dr. Martin. You know, they try to give to the institute a lot of credibility. They need Barnes as a spiritual father of the English revisionists. And they want to see themselves like an heteroclite movement, and they don't want to show that they are anti-Semites. They just want to see themselves like a researcher who want to study what happened in history. And at this time, they ask the Congress of the United States to give them proof of what happened. So they want to see themselves as an institute of research. And it's interesting to see that at this time, after the Robert Faurisson, the book of Noam Chomsky, this institute, we had like an intelligentsia, an intellectual movement who deviate to Holocaust denial, who start to have doubt of what happened in the past, what happened about Holocaust. And we say, like, for example, Colin Wilson, who supports Richard Harwood, who give support to the movement as well. We have in Germany an historian with Helmut Dewald from the University of Erlangen-Nuremberg, who published a book at this time in 1978 where he also gives some doubt about the Holocaust. We have Noam Chomsky in 1979. There is more than that, but we can see that some intellectuals deviate or had some doubt who were skeptical. And only the fact that they were skeptical about what happened means that the movement, the Holocaust denial movement, succeed to something. So now let's see another period of its letter. It's the expansion of Holocaust denial. This time is it's a time that there is a lot of success for Holocaust denial. They were in the media. They were in different trials. We have trials. Don't look too much about it because it's a little bit complicated. I will explain. We have trials in France, in trials in Germany, in Canada, in United States. Different trials start with Holocaust deniers, give them a lot of publicity in the media because media likes trials, and also they can show them as a victim. But we can see that this time in a public space, it was difficult to organize jurisprudence with Holocaust denial. We didn't know at this time how to deal with this subject. And for the law, it was complicated. So different trials start, but I have to say that this trial was, at the beginning, was not easy to do. Not easy at all. And I want to take the example of the trial in Canada of Zundel, because it was, I think you are more familiar with this trial, and it was very interesting how it works. So Zundel is, I'm sure you know about him, I don't have to talk too much about him, but it's a neo-Nazi deniers. He was accused to publish and diffuse wrong information, and by the Canadian law we were able to sue him for that. Two trials came. The first trial was in 1955. He was accused of, 85. He was accused of spreading false news, okay? Because we have this accusation, he helped that we needed for the accuser to prove the Holocaust. It means that during the trial, we needed to bring survivor, historian, to prove the Holocaust. In another way, in a defense for Zundel, he was able to bring at the court 22 deniers as a witness. So they give a very strong trial, a very intensive trial. The trial was very mediatic. They received a lot of publicity. And also, I have to say that this trial was a fiasco because it was very difficult for survivor, for historian, to manage with the defense, with the accusation of the Zundel lawyer. So it was very difficult to organize, and the media was very ambiguous at this time. So even if Zundel was accused to diffuse wrong information, they thought that the trial was not a success. So in 1988, they decided to make another trial, but to do differently, and to not accuse Zundel of spreading false news, but accused of being a neo-Nazi. So the strategy of the accuser was not the same. They needed to prove that he was anti-Semite. So it's not the same strategy. And we have the same. We had the same trial with David Irving and Deborah Lipstadt in England, and it was a little bit the same. The second trial. This trial was easier because we didn't have to prove the Holocaust. It's not that we can't prove the Holocaust. We had enough trial to prove the Holocaust. We have the trial of Nuremberg. We have the trial in Germany. We have the trial of Barbie in France. we have enough trial to prove the Holocaust. We didn't need to prove again and to bring Holocaust in trial again. So it's the reason why we didn't want to have the same trial. The second trial was a little bit easier for that. But still, Zundel was able to bring in court deniers, and he bring also a new expert, I have to say. It's Fred Luchter. I'm sure you heard about Fred Luchter. He did a report. He went to Auschwitz. He took some stone of the gas chamber, and he said that with this stone, we can see that there is no gas inside. He did like a chemical report. During the trial, when he showed his report, the court said that he's not an expert, that we present a new report that shows that it's completely wrong, but still, the Fred Luchter report gives a lot of credibility to Holocaust denier, give a lot of credibility to people who were skeptical, like Serge Thion. Serge Thion said, after the Fred Luchter report, I become denier. Same thing for David Irving. He said the same thing. He said, after the Fred Luchter report, it was obvious for me that Holocaust didn't exist. So we can see that it's very complicated to have a trial, and it's not the solution against deniers. Now we can see that at this time we have also deniers who become very famous in new public sphere, like in the university. In France, we have Henri Roch, who for the first time received a first diploma in France at the university on the report of Gerstein, who was the first ambiguous report and it was linked with Holocaust denier, and also he received a first diploma at the university in France. So he made a big controversy of that. In the United States, we have Bradley Smith, and he also gave a lot of publicity in the campus in the United States. So the question that at this time we raised is, at this time of the 1890, how shall we react to deniers? How it's possible to react to deniers, because we see that trials are so difficult. So the first idea is, shall we talk with them? And the idea is, it's what we use to respond to that is an astrologue can't discuss with an astronome. Okay, this is the point. That's the first thing. We can't. It's I use the logic of Aristotle. Aristotle say we can't discuss with someone who say that the snow is not white. It's not possible, and it's why Aristotle say, and I think it goes very well for Holocaust denier. We can't discuss with them for this reason. Second idea is, if we can't discuss with them because Holocaust deniers want this discussion, shall we, the press, the review, intellectual review, start to make a conversation, a direct conversation, like in a review. Holocaust denier talk, a review, and after it's an historian. And after we try to do like this, it didn't work. Even if it was at the beginning where there are not deniers but just revisionists, it didn't work. The law is not also a solution, as we see, but because they give them the possibility to say we have a victim of these trials. We also are, if we attacked them, it means that maybe we know that we have the right, we have the truth, we know the truth. So it's a very difficult situation with the law. At the same time, in some countries like France, like Germany, we have law against deniers since the 80s, since the 90s, we have law against deniers, so we don't have any more discussion. As soon as we have one who is denying, and we create a law for that. So it's easier, but at the same time there is a lot of debate on it. So it's a little bit complicated. Now, at this period of time, historians thought that the best way to answer to Holocaust denial is education. And it's the time that we decide to create a lot of conferences, international conference in Europe, to explain more, to be more educational on Holocaust. And we have to say that at this time, the conference that we historians made was not as popular that Holocaust denial speeches. We have to see that even if historians create a lot of conference, the media was not interested as much as they were interested by deniers. And this is a point that is very interesting, is the role and the power of the media here is that media are more interested by a man who beat a dog than a dog who beat a man. You see what I mean? So Holocaust denial has a very interesting aspect for the media, because we have researchers, historians, as they say, who deny the Holocaust. So it's so shocking that the media take advantage of it. So in the United States as well is the time that institutions start with education, museum, and also with organizations who decide to answer to Holocaust denial with brochure, with fascicule, and they create a website who is a very good answer to different arguments of Holocaust denial. Now, the last tendency of Holocaust denial is they start in the 80s, and it's also in the 90s. We can see, and I'm going to be in a... It's here. So this is the last tendency of Holocaust denial. We are talking about triangular, it's okay, red, brown, green. This is, the triangular is, give a lot of polemic now, because some people will say it's not political correctness, or it's not the way that we have to talk about the link between the three of them. But in Holocaust denial, we can see the three of them. So the red is for ultra-left, the brown is from extreme right, and the green is from radical Islam. So on Holocaust denial, a new tendency came with the idea, with the three of them. So we can see, first of all, with the extreme right, with the brown, more and more Holocaust deniers became more extreme. It's the new generation of Holocaust deniers. They are more linked with neo-Nazi movement. They want to show themselves, they call themselves post-revisionist, to say that now it's clear that the Jewish people are controlling leader of the world. So they are more extreme, and they don't, as before with Boots, with Robert Faurisson, they were more like, wanted to show themselves like professor. Now they are more clear that the extreme right is, the new generation is more extreme right, okay? We have also, and I will come back to the triangulaire and with the new tendency, but before that I want to explain to you in 1991 we have a journalist, a German journalist, his name is Michael Schmidt, and it's very interesting because he went to, he was able to show himself like a neo-Nazi, and he did a documentary on a neo-Nazi movement in Germany, and he was able to film reunion, conference, of neo-Nazi with deniers. So it was like not a revelation, but still, it was now we could, before it was ambiguous if Holocaust deniers were linked with neo-Nazi. After this documentary that he was able to do it, there is no doubt. And it changed everything because now they had to see the linked with extreme right. We have to see that more and more also at this time, Holocaust denial was more involved with politics. Like in France, Le Pen started to be ambiguous with Holocaust denial. Also, this is a time where the last part with the radical Islam. So the first one was Louis Farrakhan. Louis Farrakhan started to have contact with denier in the 80s. And the movement, his movement, Nation of Islam, was linked with deniers in 80. In 1985, Boots from Northwestern, the professor, the doctor of engineering, was invited to the conference of Nation of Islam at this time. So the link with Holocaust denial started to be obvious at this time. Again, I don't want to say that all Islam people or Islamic people or all Muslim people became deniers. It's not my point. I just want to see with you that radical Islam movement start to be in contact with deniers. We had another first sign. It's in France. His name is Warid Gorgi. Warid Gorgi is not here after. Warid Gorgi is a consul of Iran in France. He's working for the consul of Iran in France. And in 1987, a French journalist in Le Monde revealed that Gorgi has give financial help to Ogemios. Ogemios is a neo-Nazi organization in France, and also a deniers review, publication. So at this time, we can see that Iran has contact with neo-Nazi in France and also with deniers in France. So the first deniers is Ahmed Rami. Ahmed Rami is from Morocco. He is living in Sweden, and he created a website, radioislam.org, and his website is very strong anti-Semite, Islamist, Nazism. He has link with three of it, and Holocaust denial as well. We know that Rami has contact with people in Egypt who has contact with Nazi, ex-Nazi. So he is in contact with people there. Also in the 90s, Rami started to be in contact with all the deniers. So we have link between them at this time, and it's also very clear that Islam is more radical. Islam is more interested by deniers. The triangular become obvious with Garaudy. I don't know if you heard about Garaudy, but Garaudy wrote a book in 1985. 95. Thank you. You are following. It's good. He's mixing anti-Sionism and anti-Semitism very strongly, and also denial of Holocaust. And his book has been published by the ultra-left Pierre Guillaume with La Vieille Taupe, as I told you before. And his book is a very success in the Arab world and become very famous. And at this time, it was clear that our Arab world was interesting by Holocaust denial. In 2000, the Institute of Historical Review that I told you wanted to make a conference in Lebanon, so we can see the contact between the Institute of Historical Review and the Arab world. After that, we have 2006 is the last part of this link. It's Iran, who started being interested by Holocaust denial, who did the first conference on Holocaust denial. We invite all deniers in Iran. They create a center over there and give them a lot of publicity. At the same time, the fact that deniers were involved in radical Islamists, they lose a certain credibility. Because we have to see that now they are not independent intellectuals. They are linked with Iran. So it's, we can see that in one way Iran gives them an impulsion, but at the same time the credibility changed. So this is what we can say. Now it's my last part before question, is to see that. So when I see this deviation of Holocaust denial with radical Islamists, I can say that they are losing something. They are losing a kind of credibility. But now there is new tendency on Holocaust denial on internet, of course, when it worry me that the way that is done. Because I don't know if you saw the website, it's holocaustdenialvideo.com, and it's a new website, Holocaust denial website, and we show it's really well done. We show inside, they show Auschwitz with the video, and they explain how it's not possible that Auschwitz has the gas chamber. It's a very well done video, and it's very worrying because when you see young generation who watch this video, they can be influenced by it. Also, we have another Holocaust deniers. His name is Eric Hunt, and his website is holocaustdeny.com. And he's taking the last movie of Spielberg. The movie is The Last Day, and he did a movie is The Last Day of the Big Lie, and he takes all the survivor of the movie of Spielberg, and he show how it's not, they are lying, how it's very impressive how it's well done. It's worrying me, of course, the way that is done. We can see also, and it's my last point. Soon my last point, is a book that we can find on Amazon. The title of the book is Debating the Holocaust, A New Look at Both Sides. This is the book. The book is written by Thomas Dalton, PhD. If you see this book, you can say, okay, let's hear the both sides. But in fact, this book has been published by German Rudolph, and German Rudolph is a neo-Nazi in Germany. And we don't know that, it's not written. But when we see that, we can think that it's both sides. Let's hear another side. So it's very, it can be very, it can give a lot of influence to people. The last thing that I want to say is this, is when I give a lecture at Yad Vashem, I give lecture to professors who come from Europe, England, France, Belgium, and they have a problem. They have a lot of problem in school with young students because they are talking about Holocaust, and the students are denying. And they try to speak with them. They try to tell them. But the students are very strong, and they deny the Holocaust in class. And the professor, they sometimes don't know how to react. They don't know how to, because there is so much on internet to show them that they are the right, and why not to hear the both sides? So it's very difficult for them, and it's very worry for the future. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Avec le post-doctorat, and the Ministère de l'Éducation disallowed it, and that's what leads to the law against Holocaust now. What was the title of the thesis and the person? I was in France when
it's ROC. It's ROC. I talk about it. It's a Gerstein report.
The Gerstein report? Okay.
Yes.
What is the title of your thesis at France?
C'est
pas le titre de votre thèse en français, en bien des personnes ici qui disent en plus le français.
I don't think I don't know. I don't think you can find my PhD here.
Moi, je vais écrire au Paris ça, et je vais avoir une copie de votre thèse par le biais de la bibliothèque.
Now I can't manage le négationnisme le négationnisme dans l'espace public.
I think that the people who are concerned with trying to remedy Holocaust denial are not paying enough attention to the psychological domain. And here I'd like to borrow two key concepts. The first is, many forms of psychologists tell us that as long as there's a payoff, people will continue to do their behavior even if it's dysfunctional. They're getting something out of it. Which brings me to the second part. About a decade or a little more ago, there was a phenomenon called false memory syndrome, where it was discovered that those who were having trouble coping with the present were encouraged to invent a past which justified their troubles even though it wasn't true. And I would suggest that that's the problem we're facing with Holocaust denial. That on the one hand, there's the question of traditional anti-Semitism, which is wreaked in European culture, and in modern Islamic one as well, in the 20th century. Then there's the actual guilt about the Holocaust itself. But more importantly than that, there are a lot of people in the world today who are having trouble coping with the present. The entire Islamic world is in an uproar because of the problem of modernization and the problems of democracy or lack of it. Even in North America, there are the many millions of people don't understand why it is that of all the different cultural groups, the Jews seem to have prospered and are more successful than most of the other immigrant groups. So they could only think it's not because of their culture or their efforts, it's because obviously the dice is loaded and they're manipulating things. So unless we deal with these psychological things, you can deny on historical truth until you're blue in the face that the claims are false, and it will make no difference. Because if they want to believe it, they will believe it if it serves a purpose. So my question is, how do you manage to deal with this? Because in many ways it's not really in our control. No matter what we do or say, they're going to continue acting the way they do because they're getting a payoff from it. So how do you fight this invisible kind of enemy?
Okay, as I told you, there is no way to fight. The best way to fight is education.
No, but they, as you just pointed out, they look at the internet and they see all the arguments pro and for. So that doesn't deal with anything.
No.
In addition to which, by the way, I used to be a teacher, for example, and I had some students who were proud of their Nazi past. They claimed their parents said that Hitler's Mein Kampf was the best book they ever read. I mean, so how you can't just simply say it's education, because that alone won't do it.
No, it's true that when we see with teacher and professor, we try to help them to how to react and to see the methodology of deniers, to show them how they are linked with neo-Nazi, to see,
Yeah, but my last comment here, but that's complicated, and the trouble is that the young people today, and then I'll finish, the young people today, many of them, are looking for easy answers. They're not looking for hard, long, complicated work.
When I talked with professor about it, they said that some of them told me that they managed to. Some people we will never take away their anti-Semitism. In one way or another, it's not possible. It's generation from generation, it's not possible. But some of them, they will understand that they made a mistake. It's what the teacher told me. Now about the psychological effect of Holocaust denial, it's a very interesting subject because it's very interesting to see the psychology of deniers. If we can see them link between them of their psychology. And I come to that because first of all, I interview in Israel a famous psychologist, Dr. Fall, and it was interesting to see that we try to understand the way that they deny on the psychology problem that they can have, even if it's not easy to do it because we are not a psychiatrist, we don't have deniers in front of them, of us, but also a new book in France came out from Valérie Gounet, who decided to wrote a biography of Robert Faurisson. And through this biography, we can see how she managed to understand and to show the psychology problem of Robert Faurisson. And it's a well done book, and I just wrote an article on it, and it will be published in English through his gap, so you will know more about it soon. Yes.
You just very briefly touched on David Irving and the trial.
Sure.
Wasn't that one of the successes
Sure.
of people who trying to deny
Yes.
the Holocaust deniers?
Yes,
And what kind of an effect did it have on the subsequent Holocaust deniers and on the previous Holocaust deniers? That's my first question.
Sure.
And my second question is, were there ever surveys taken, let's say in the recent past, of the four countries that you mentioned generally, the US, Germany, France, and England, of how much of the population, the ordinary non-professional Holocaust denier population, how much the professional Holocaust denier propaganda filtered down? In other words, what percentage of the US population, German, French and English population actually are now Holocaust deniers because they, not because they came to it by themselves, but because they heard the propaganda or from the internet?
It's first of all, David Irving, of course, you're right, it's a very famous trial and it was a success. And I think after that, it's true that we can see that it's like a fall of Holocaust deniers after this trial, and now they don't try anymore to make a trial because it's David Irving who started the trial, and now they don't dare to do it again because they know that it will not be a success for them. And after, because it's now obvious that they are linked with anti-Semites, with neo-Nazi and all of it. So then after, it's very difficult to have an idea of, we know who is denier from the review, from the magazine, from the one who wants to say that they are deniers, but to know how much the population is inside Holocaust denier or is influenced by denial, it's very difficult to say.
There are never surveys taken?
Yes,
okay.
I wanted to say about it. It was like two surveys in United States in the 80s. You can find the book has been published by the American Jewish Committee on a different survey. It was interesting to see that they made two surveys. One was done with the way that the question was done was ambiguous, so it was high, quite high. So the press was, oh, you see, Holocaust denial has a big influence on.
When you say high, what percentage was it?
I think it was like something around 10, something like this, maybe a little bit less. And then because of this survey was not well done, they decided to do another one, and then it was only 1 or 2%, you know. But the fact is that the media talk about the first one, but they didn't talk as much as the second one, because it's a way that to afraid people about it as well. So it's except that I remember that we had one in France as well during the trial of Barbie, but I don't remember how much was it. But it's difficult to say, because when you see now with the new social media and the forum where Holocaust deniers are, they try to say, let's hear the both sides. So in one way, doing this, they get involved and they influence people.
But just getting back to David Irving, I mean, you didn't mention it at all when you're talking. I was quite surprised. You mentioned everything else.
Sure.
But because it had such an impact, and I would like if you give more details about, did it have an impact in shooting holes through some of the arguments of the Holocaust deniers?
Sure,
Did some of the
sure.
Holocaust deniers actually go away because of that and stop writing or publishing or talking? So
You're completely right. It's just the question of time that I had.
Okay.
And it's the reason why I didn't talk about it. But of course, it's part of my book.
No, but that's my question was,
It's-
what kind of an impact did it have
I
in lowering?
I
in
told
lowering
you.
Holocaust denial?
Yes, completely. Yes. But at the same time, in one way, yes. In another way, you can see how it had an impact in Iran, in how Holocaust denied involved in Arabic world. And you can see that even if it's true that it had an impact, it's not stopping Holocaust denial. Yes?
We talk about education. That perhaps one element you didn't mention is the effective power of survivors who speak to, especially to young people, which is something I've witnessed quite a bit. You mentioned the last days, and I think it's important to note that one of the 5 people profiled in the last days is sitting at the table with you now, and I'll be interested to see how they debunked my mother's story in the other movie. My question, though, is there a historical precedent of another event that has this kind of denial which can be linked in any element of a parallel?
What, can you
Is there some other historical element that carries this, that has stirred up this kind of denial of historical element?
Sure.
We can trace as a parallel to this story.
Sure. Do you want to talk about survival or just
As you preferred it.
No, just because it's not me who has to talk about how felt survivor. It's not me, but.
I mean, more as because you were talking about techniques of what is that education is
No,
effective.
one of the best things that has been done about survivor is Institute of Spielberg, who did since the 80s or maybe in 85, maybe the end of 80, he started the foundation of Spielberg, and he interviewed a lot of survivors, thousands
No,
of
but that's not his
survivors.
question. His question is there another topic?
After, I'm sorry,
Favorite
he asked me about
Favorite
survivor before, and then after I was talking about that. But is it, so this is the way that I think it's the best answer to Holocaust denial. Of course, it's to show the testimony of survivor, but it's not the only one, because we have so many other proof that only witness. We don't have only witness to prove the Holocaust. We have the plans of the gas chamber. We have so many other proof. Now, about different denial. Of course, there is different denial. We have the denial of genocide of Turkey. That's where it's another denial. We have the denial of genocide of Tutsi. It's another denial. So it's not the same. It's not the same. How can I say? This is not the same it's not the same. It's not as strong as Holocaust denial is, but at the same time, and it's not the same denial from, for example, the Armenian genocide, because it's done by a state, and the Holocaust, the denial of the Holocaust is done by people. So it's not the same way to do it, but at the same time, the logic is the same. They just deny a genocide. And they will say the same idea, like the number are less. They will say the crime was not done by, or you see what I mean. But after that, we try to see, we try to use Holocaust denial for different, for other events, and it doesn't work. It's not the same thing. It works for when we want to deny a genocide. Yes?
I'm going to follow from that thing directly. You just trace the evolution of a atrocious historical genocidal event that I think is unique from any other. We do not have the same follow-up from other events, whether we're speaking about Darfur, at least not yet, or Bosnia-Herzegovina, or Angola, or, as you said, the Rwanda and Burundi. It's not the same. Maybe you have the first generation, the first wave that we spoke about the anti-Semites, the far-right people, but these people are simply trying to cover their tracks. These people are trying to exonerate themselves and push forward their political opinion. The Holocaust denial movement may have started off as that, as people trying to exonerate their ills, the ills that they've committed to society. But it transformed, it morphed. It became first an intellectual movement. It became fashionable to become a Holocaust denier at some point.
What's the question?
I'll get to it.
Okay. It's,
and later it seemed to become one with political implications, where parties would use Holocaust denial for the purpose of anti-immigration policies to push those forward. So, my question is, what do you think will be the next historical event? Let me put this in context. We have those atrocious events, but the Holocaust becomes more of a historical event that can be likened to the Civil War or French Revolution, one that is subject to revisionist history. All of the people are dead from that generation. They can move on. You disagree?
No, I don't disagree. I just don't know.
So it becomes.
My
my question's coming very quickly. So it can be more likened to other genocides. It's actually closer to a major historical event, and it deserves that reputation. So my question is, which of the genocides that we've seen, and we've seen so many, you mentioned Turkey, the Turkish atrocities against the Armenians, which of the genocides in the past 100 years, the past century, the decade of atrocities, is most likely to follow suit and take on this type of politico-intellectual evolution, where it actually becomes because this is very unique. We discussed this. There's no
historian look the past, but it doesn't know the future.
It just shows. It just shows how important an historical event this is. This has formed the intellectual basis for all of the far-right parties in Europe.
If you see, for example, if you compare with the Holocaust, the denial of the Armenian genocide, he came before, because the state starts. So the denial of this genocide was at the same time, but because it's not the same denial, it's not the same people who denial, it didn't have the same impact, or except that
it didn't receive the same publicity. So apparently does not impact. It does. It's not as important as a historical event. It did not shape the formation or how do you say, the political future of an entire continent as the Holocaust.
It did. For the genocide, Armenian genocide, yes. A
The
lot
whole
of
continent?
intellectual was involved, a lot of country was involved in this. No, I think, I don't know. I don't know what to answer.
All the major deniers, the names you've listed, unless I've missed something, they seem to be men.
They all men.
Is that
Oh
significant?
no, there is some girls.
There are women
And
too.
so in Swiss,
many
in
Anglo-Saxon
Swiss,
names.
Yes,
also, yeah. So no, not so much, like 2 or 3.
but mainly men. It's a male thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Yes, no.
I have
Up to you.
Yeah.
I have a quick question, and it's really, I know that the Nazi archive was opened some years ago, and has there been information that's been gleaned from the miles and miles and miles of archives of Nazi documentation that in any way says, absolutely this happened?
We don't need more archives to prove the Holocaust. That for sure. We have enough to prove the Holocaust. Now,
But I'm asking about specifically, not witnesses and not this,
No, I
but
understand,
from
I understand
the
that.
official Nazi.
No,
Yeah.
I understand we have enough archive. You go in any a big institution like Holocaust Museum in Washington or Yad Vashem, and you can see the archives, and we have enough. Now, more and more, the Russian archive open more and more we discover. Of course, we still have things that we discover on historical events or details, or for more in where Gasham where, and etc. But we don't need more proof to prove the Holocaust.
I don't think that we need proof, but if they say that this witness or that witness, but if the Nazis themselves said that we were perpetrators.
Yes, but for them they will say that the neo-Nazi will their witnesses were done with torture, so it was a lie. For them, they say, for denial, they will say, oh, it's not enough. Yes.
I have an answer to one of
Sorry,
Yes, I was wondering, in the current situation where a lot of Holocaust denial is now occurring in the Middle East, in countries where there's not either strong American or Jewish interests who have a certain amount of influence. So what is currently being done to try to stop Holocaust denial in these countries where the traditional means?
I understand exactly what you said. In France, for example, we create a website. The name of the website is Aladdin Project, Aladdin. And it's a website created by the Foundation of Shoah, that is the main foundation in France. And they decided to create a website to answer to Holocaust denial in Arabic language. So it was done in before 2000, maybe around 2000, and it has a good success. So it's one way to do it. And more and more, I think things like this will be done. And for example, I have an example in France, but yesterday or the day before, yesterday, Iman came to Yad Vashem from France to know what is Yad Vashem, what is the Holocaust, and it's a way to reduce this kind of propaganda.
Okay, guys, I want to thank our speaker
Thank you.
on behalf Thank you very much. On behalf of ISGAP and Professor Charles Asher Small.
Academic pedigree also. Stephanie Courouble did a PhD in Paris at Université Denis Diderot under the supervision of Pierre Vidal-Naquet, a very famous historian. And she did her dissertation on Holocaust denial in various countries after World War II. And she's writing a book about that topic, Comparative Analysis of Holocaust Denial in Various Countries and in various media also. She's an ISGAP fellow. She's also a fellow at the Institut d'Histoire du Temps Présent, which I had the pleasure of visiting also and working in a little bit. She also does research at Bar-Ilan University. She also lectures at Yad Vashem at the Université Populaire de Jérusalem. So a person very well connected, very well traveled, and very well researched, if I may say. Thank you very much for coming all the way to Montreal to give us this seminar.
Okay, thank you, Professor Fischer. I would like first to thank the university to receive me. It's an honor to be here. After that, I would like to thank ISGAP to invite me to Montreal and his director, Charles Smalls. And I would like to thank you to be here. And the last thing that I would like to say with you is if you have a problem with my English, I'm not bilingual like you. So please raise your hand, tell me that it's not enough, you don't understand, and I will come back on my sentence. Now, if you have questions about the subject, we will take time after the lecture to talk about it. So keep your question for after, okay? So the first questions that I would like to raise with you to see the issue of Holocaust denial is shall we talk about Holocaust denial? Shall we not just ignore them, not to talk about Holocaust denial? And it's the first questions that I would like to see with you is it not giving them the publicity, talking about them? So this is a question. To answer to this question, I have to tell you a small story. I was with Abraham Foxman, the National Director of Anti-Defamation League in New York 2 years ago, and I asked him the questions. How happened at the beginning when Holocaust deniers were talking about the subject in the 60s? How did you react as an Anti-Defamation League? He told me that the survivors came to him and they wanted to talk with him about it, and should we react to them or not? And at this time, in the 60s, they said no. Everything was clear. If you have questions, you will ask me after for this. Now, what I want to see with you is the first. I will come back after. It's the first time, the first period of Holocaust deniers is the beginning of Holocaust denier, and the time is 1946, 1973. So it's in fact the political roots of Holocaust deniers, and I will explain to you that it's what I'm talking about political roots is because they are funding the Holocaust deniers, the Holocaust denial, and in the present time, and they show in fact the future ambiguity of Holocaust denial. So the first political roots. It's divided in there is third root. So the first root is ex-Nazi, neo-Nazi, extreme right, and the second and the third root has to be with libertarianism. So I will explain to you everything about it, but let's see now the first roots of the extreme right. So we have extreme right, ex-Nazi, neo-Nazi. We have in Germany Nation Europa, that it's a review. We have Deutsche Nationalzeitung, it's also a review with director G. Frey, that it's a neo-Nazi. We have Udo Wallendy, also a link with neo-Nazi. In United States, we have Austin Happ. We have Liberty Lobby, with the director is Willis R. Carto. We have the National Renaissance Party in 1949. With the director James Mandel, and we have the American Nazi Party in 1959. So this is in France we have Maurice Bardèche, on the magazine that Maurice Bardèche have is Défense de l'Occident in 1952, and also François Duprat who start also deny the Holocaust. So this is the first roots of Holocaust denial, and these roots it's quite simple to understand because they are neo-Nazi, they are extreme right, and what they want is they want to free of guilt the Nazi regime. They want to say that the Nazi regime is not responsible for the Holocaust. They want to deny it. So it's a mixed, at this time, this period of time, it's a mix between revisionist and Holocaust denial. So they don't, sometimes they don't deny, they just review. It's a mix between the two of it. And they want to say, it's simple, they want to say that the Jewish people are controlling the history. And it's quite, it's quite easy to understand this root of Holocaust denial. Now, if we shouldn't react, we should just ignore them. But the fact is, as soon as deniers become receives more credibility in the public space, we couldn't anymore ignore them. And this is the point that I want to see with you, is this point here. I don't know if you know about Robert Faurisson. It's a French denier, very famous in France. As soon as he received a free article in Le Monde, that is the famous newspaper in France, as soon as he received a free article where he denied the gas chamber, where he denied the Holocaust, we couldn't anymore ignore them. So this is the point that it's very important to understand now, and I want to go like this. 1 hour to talk about this subject is not enough, of course, and I am going to talk about different countries and at different times, so I have to do short, and I'm sorry, sometimes it's a little bit frustrating because I can't more develop, but it's a very complex subject, and 1 hour is not enough, of course. So I'm going to see with you the evolution of Holocaust denial in a time with a chronology to see different periods. Before to do this chronology, I can wait if you want that people are coming. Okay, so before to do this chronology, I want to give a small definition of Holocaust denial. I'm not familiar with the computer, so please, I will try to do the best. So what Holocaust deniers say? They say that historian, the Jew, mostly, the Allies, and the Jew, Israel, lie about the Holocaust, and they create a rumor, the extermination of the Jewish people, in order to obtain financial help from the Germany, and further to create the state of Israel. It is what they say. Now, if you want, I can see another slide. Is the argument. So I'm going to explain a little bit their arguments. I can't develop because there are a lot, but I try to summarize some of them. The first argument that they have, they want to deny the proof of the genocide. So they are going to say the proof of genocide are fake, are second-hand. The proof of genocide are in contradiction. There are improbability. This is the first argument. After they go to historian. They say historian misinterpret the proof. So they focus on historian. And then after they focus on testimonies. They say that the SS, during the trials, they lie about it because they were under torture. So they couldn't explain exactly what happened, so they lied. After that, they say the witness the witness are with mistakes. So they mistaken they are doing a lot of mistake of what happened. So this is the way to deny the Holocaust. After they use different arguments like it's impossible demographically. After demographically arguments, they use like technically arguments, like it's not possible technically, like the gas chamber couldn't exist technically. So it's another argument. After, they will say people die from typhus, from disease, but not from the gas chamber. And they will say that the Jewish people are alive, and they are alive in the United States, in Israel, with fake name. And they didn't want to see anymore each other, like the family, because before they were forced to be married. So they don't want to see anymore. So this is the main argument that they use. And then after the last argument that I can see is the final solution was not the extermination of the Jewish people, but it was the expulsion of the Jewish people near in the East countries. So this is the main arguments that I can see about Holocaust denial. Of course, there is more than that, and I couldn't explain more, but we have to go on. So after, I wanted to see with you, it's more how we analyze their arguments. And it's a little bit more complex, but for me, I thought it was very interesting to see it. First of all, they have a logic of denunciation. And I can go on it, but I use the sociologue, I don't know if you know Luc Boltanski. He's a sociologue who works on denunciation, how the denunciation works. And it's very interesting to see that, so the denier are the denunciator, the victim are the German people, and the persecutor are the alias. And this denunciation, there has to be, it's very important when you have a denunciation that the denunciator is very far away of the victim. So they don't want to, the deniers, to have a logic denunciation, they need to say we are far away from the German people, we are not neo-Nazi. It's needed for their logic of denunciation. After that, we have another logic, is the logic of the prophecy. It means that they're using a logic of prophecy as the way that they are the new prophet. How they are the new prophet? Because they say, we have a good news to tell you. The good news is that the Jewish people never died. So for them, it's like they are the new prophet. And they use this like, it's a good news. You should be very happy of it. So, and they go on this logic. Another logic that they use is, as I told you, they use the logic of technical arguments. And this logic is very strong for them. And I will come back with it in my chronology. But it's very important to see that they send pseudo-experts in Auschwitz to prove that the gas chamber never existed. And they had a famous report on it. And I will come back on it because it has to be with the Zundel trial, maybe that the trial that you know the more here in Canada. So I will come back on it with this kind of report. But it's very interesting to see their arguments logic. And a last logic that it's interesting to see, it's the logic of lampenist. I use in French the word pamphlétaire. And I think it's more pamphlétaire than lamponist that I want to use. So I don't know if lamponist is the best way. You have here in McGill a professor, it's Marc Angeno. I don't know if you know Marc Angeno, but it's a famous professor here who works on the logic of pamphlétaire. And it's very interesting to see that the deniers go very well in their logic of pamphlétaire. And all the pamphlétaires use the same arguments. They say, for example, that they want to see the truth. The truth for them is the best thing that they want to see. They research the truth. And it's all the pamphlétaires are using the same arguments, and deniers are the same as well. And Marc Angeno talk about the paranoia of the conspiracy. And it's very interesting to see that the denier has the same logic. They see conspiracy everywhere, and they see the conspiracy of the Jewish people. And this idea of the conspiracy of the Jewish people is it's not new. we have the Protocole des Sages de Sion. In English is the Protocol of the Elder of Sion. And now we have another theory of the conspiracy. They are blaming the Jew for the 9/11. And so this conspiracy of the international Jewish people is a link with the past, is a link with the future, and the deniers goes very well inside this conspiracy. Now what is interesting is like deniers refuse to see themselves inside this conspiracy. They say, we are not like this. We are researchers. We are historians. They want to have a strong credibility. So it's the way that they want to be accepted by the public space. So this is a little bit what I wanted to tell you about the definition, and I hope